Okay, so you want to buy a KFC. The secret recipe, the 11 herbs and spices, the Colonel's face on every bucket. But here's the thing nobody tells you before you write the check. The man who invented all of it. Every recipe, every system, the entire brand. Sold it for $2 million at age 73, watched someone else turn it into a $10 billion empire, and spent the last 16 years of his life publicly calling the product garbage. If the guy who built it couldn't make it work for himself, what are the chances you will? The price of a KFC depends on where you want to open it. In the United States, opening a traditional KFC costs between $1.3 and $3.5 million. This covers the building or lease, kitchen equipment, signage, initial inventory, and a one-time franchise fee of $45,000 just for the right to use the Colonel's face. On top of that, you need at least $750,000 in liquid cash. Not borrowed, not a loan, your own money sitting in an account that Yum Brands can verify before they approve you. Outside the US, the entry costs are lower. In the UK, a new KFC runs between £400,000 and £800,000 depending on location. In Germany and France, somewhere around €600,000 to €1.2 million. Eastern Europe is cheaper still. Poland, Romania, the Czech Republic, you can enter those markets for €400,000 to €500,000 in total investment. But choosing a country isn't just about the price. In some markets, you can't buy a KFC franchise as a private individual at all. China is the biggest example. KFC has over 10,000 locations in China. That's 2.5 times more than it has in the entire United States. But every single one of those restaurants belongs to a company called Yum China, which was spun off from Yum Brands in 2016 as a completely separate publicly traded corporation. Yum China does not sell franchises to individuals in China. The entire market, 10,000 locations, billions in revenue, is locked behind a corporate wall. No matter how much money you have, you are not opening a KFC in Shanghai. The only way to participate in that market is to buy Yum China stock on the New York Stock Exchange. India is similar. The KFC network there operates through sub-franchisee agreements under regional master licensees. You can get in, but you're paying fees not just to Yum Brands, but to a local middleman sitting between you and the corporation. Let's say you've decided to open in the US. You have your $750,000 in cash. You fill out the application, pass the background check, sit through the interviews with Yum Brands regional representatives. The process is simpler than McDonald's. There's no unpaid training period, no internal university with an exam at the end. If your money is real and your record is clean, you have a reasonable shot at approval. You sign a 20-year franchise agreement and get your keys. And then you open the envelope with your monthly obligations to the corporation. There are two main payments. The first is the royalty fee, 5% of your gross sales every month for the right to use the KFC name. The second is the marketing fee, another 5% of gross sales for national advertising. Together, that's 10% of everything your restaurant earns before you bought a single piece of chicken. McDonald's takes 8% in royalties and marketing combined. KFC takes 10%. That 2% difference doesn't sound like much until you calculate it. Across a full year on a restaurant doing $1.2 million in revenue. That's an extra $24,000 a year going to the corporation compared to a McDonald's franchisee in the same position. Now meet Harlan Sanders. Because his story is the only reason anyone knows what KFC is, and it tells you everything about how this business actually works. Sanders was 40 years old in 1930 when he started cooking chicken. For truck drivers at a gas station he ran in Corbin, Kentucky. Not a restaurant. A gas station with a few tables in the back. He had already failed at a dozen careers before this. Lawyer, insurance salesman, ferry boat operator, tire salesman. Cooking chicken at a roadside stop was not a plan. It was just what was left. He developed his pressure frying technique and his spice blend over years of iteration, adjusting the recipe batch by batch, arguing with himself over ratios of salt and pepper and paprika in a kitchen the size of a large closet. By the early 1950s, his food was famous enough that the governor of Kentucky gave him an honorary military title, Colonel Harlan Sanders. He liked it enough to make it permanent. Started wearing the white suit and the string tie everywhere he went. Built himself into a character before anyone called it personal branding. By 1964, he had personally driven to over 600 locations across the US and Canada, cooking his chicken in other people's kitchens and convincing restaurant owners to pay him a nickel per piece if they adopted his method. 600 franchise locations, built entirely on road trips, handshakes, and a cooler of spice mix in the back of his car. At age 73, That year, a pair of investors named John Y. Brown Jr. and Jack Massey offered him $2 million for the entire company. Sanders took it. In today's money, that's roughly $20 million. For 600 locations, the recipe, the brand, the trademark, and the entire franchise system. He kept his title, his white suit, and a salary of $75,000 a year as brand ambassador, and then watched what they did to his company. Within a few years, the new owners changed the gravy recipe to cut costs. Sanders called it, in a recorded interview, sludge with a wallpaper paste base. He started showing up at franchise locations unannounced and telling journalists the food had gone downhill. He tried to open a competing restaurant with his wife called Claudia Sanders Dinner House. Yum Brand's predecessor sued him for trademark infringement. He countersued. He lost. When Sanders died in 1980, the brand he sold for $2 million was doing over $2 billion a year in system sales. It had already been sold 3 more times since him, to Hubeline, then to R.J. Reynolds, then to PepsiCo, before eventually becoming part of Yum Brands. The recipe he wrote on a piece of paper in a Kentucky kitchen is now locked in a physical vault at KFC headquarters in Louisville. The original handwritten document, behind a combination lock, inside a building with its own security system. And the spice blend itself is split between 2 separate manufacturers, each of whom produces only half the formula, so that no single supplier ever holds the complete recipe. The most valuable seasoning blend in fast food history, and even the people who make it don't know all of it. If you don't want to open a new location from scratch, there's another path. Buy an existing franchise from an owner who wants out. This is how most new franchisees enter the KFC system in the US right now. And there are more sellers than usual because the relationship between Yum Brands and its US franchisees has been deteriorating for years. In 2020, a group of KFC franchisees filed a lawsuit against Yum Brands. The claim was that the corporation was forcing franchise owners to purchase chicken and supplies exclusively from Yum-approved vendors at prices 15 to 20% above what they could source on the open market. The franchisees had no choice. The contracts required approved suppliers. The approved suppliers charged more, and Yum Brands, according to the lawsuit, was receiving undisclosed rebates from those same vendors. The franchisees were subsidizing their own overcharging without knowing it. At the same time, Yum Brands launched a mandatory renovation program called KFC of Tomorrow. New equipment, new kitchen layouts, updated exterior design, cost per location between $300,000 and $700,000. Not optional. Franchisees who refused risked non-renewal of their 20-year contracts. One franchisee who went through this was a Texas-based operator with 14 locations built over 20 years. He completed the required renovations on 12 of them at a total personal cost of over $4 million. When he applied for contract renewal on the remaining 2, Yum Brands declined, offered to buy him out below market value. He said publicly that after 2 decades and $4 million in mandatory investment, the system felt designed to exhaust operators until they had no choice but to hand the asset back to corporate at a discount. He is not the only one who came to that conclusion. Now let's talk about what you actually make. Before that, one more thing about the structure of this business that most people miss. Yum Brands owns not just KFC, but also Taco Bell and Pizza Hut, all 3 brands under one corporate roof. This matters to you as a franchisee because the corporation's attention and resources are split 3 ways. When McDonald's corporate makes a decision, it is a decision about McDonald's. When Yum Brands makes a decision, it might be a decision that benefits Taco Bell at the expense of KFC. In 2024, Taco Bell generated more operating profit for Yum Brands than KFC and Pizza Hut combined. KFC is not the priority inside its own parent company. The franchisees who understand this go in with their eyes open. The ones who don't find out the hard way when the annual convention feels like a Taco Bell shareholder meeting. Your KFC does the system's US average, about $1.2 million in annual revenue. Out of that, the corporation takes 10% in royalties. And marketing, which is $120,000, food costs on chicken run higher than beef, and they move with commodity prices. In 2022 alone, wholesale poultry prices jumped over 40% in 12 months. A McDonald's operator saw their food costs go up. A KFC operator saw their food costs go up more, with no ability to adjust the royalty rate, no relief from the marketing fee, and no compensation from the corporation. Add labor for 40 to 50 employees, rent, utilities, and insurance, and you're left with somewhere between $80,000 and $150,000 per year in net profit. To earn back your $2 million investment, you're looking at 13 to 20 years of daily operations. Now the bad scenario, somewhere around year 12, when you're close to breaking even, Yum Brands announces the next mandatory upgrade cycle. New digital ordering kiosks, redesigned drive-through layout, updated exterior branding package. Another $400,000. You take out a loan because you're too close to the finish line to walk away. 2 years later, Yum Brands decides not to renew your contract. They offer to buy you out. The number they offer does not account for the renovation you completed 14 months ago. At that point, something becomes very clear. Over the last 20 years, Yum Brands stock has grown by over 500%. The same $2 million invested in Yum Brands stock in 2005, instead of a franchise, would be worth over $12 million today. No approved supplier contracts, no mandatory renovation programs, no 45-employee payroll, no chicken commodity risk. Harlan Sanders cooked chicken at a gas station for 30 years, built 600 franchise locations by hand, and sold the whole thing for $2 million. You know what he should have done with that $2 million? Exactly what the people who bought it from him did. Sit back, collect the percentage, and let someone else scrub the fryers.